Hey, it's Greg Stanley. If you're listening to this podcast, you know I love everything automotive. This passion has expanded to include being a car specialist consultant for RM Sotheby's. So if you need assistance buying or consigning a collector car at any one of our online or live auctions, including Scottsdale, Amelia Island, or Monterey, you can reach one of our car specialists at rmsotheby's.com, or you can email me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com.
This is the Collector Car Podcast, the home for the auto enthusiast. Join Greg Stanley as he applies over 25 years of insights and analytical experience to the collector car market. He will interview the experts and throw in some fun stuff as well.
Welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. Hey, it's Greg Stanley, and I have a very interesting guest, Mike Roberts. Mike, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Greg. It's a true pleasure being here, so thank you.
Yeah, so this is kind of a follow-up to last week's interview with Wayne Carini, because if you don't know who Mike is, he's actually the sales manager at F40 Motorsports. Isn't that correct, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Wow, so that's really cool. So obviously Wayne is front and center, F40 Motorsports, you know, all the different businesses he has, obviously chasing classic cars. So if you would, kind of go over what you do and how you support Wayne day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So my history with Wayne and F40 goes back pretty far, from being a kid at 15 years old, working for Wayne, sweeping the shop floors and washing cars and, you know, learning all aspects of the industry, to coming back after college with the business degree and taking over the sales department. So it's a lot more than just sales. It's all aspects of, you know, marketing, dealing with, you know, all the people that come in the door, and then all Wayne's, you know, personal stuff with, you know, his collection and helping them any way I can, with, you know, the business to him personally.
Wow, well, that's really cool. And you and I met a number of years ago because I stopped by as I was traveling through there for work, and I said, you know what, I've always loved the show, obviously. I want to stop by F40 Motorsports. And Wayne was not there. Actually, 2 of the 3 times that I stopped by to see you, Wayne was not there. And you were nice enough to give me a full tour, which I really appreciate. You really know your stuff because you walked me through a bunch of the cars that were on site there. So I assume you get that a lot. You get people that drop by because they're fans of the show, and you're able to make that connection, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's great. We're always open to the public, get people from all over the world. You know, everyone's very excited to be there. So it's great. We get to meet all kinds of, you know, interesting people from all over. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. And I also wanted to have you on because I follow you on Instagram. And what's your Instagram handle?
It's MotorMike84.
Okay. So our listeners can find him. And I wanted you to talk about the next generation of collector cars, because as I watch your Instagram feed, I noticed that you've been purchasing, it seems like for your personal collection, some cars that I would kind of define in trucks that I would define as kind of next gen, you know, what the next generation is looking for. And a lot of times it's stuff that is already somewhat collectible or is becoming even more so, you know, more collectible as time goes on. So if you would, could you just kind of review what cars and trucks maybe that you're seeing on the rise, so to speak, in the marketplace? What kind of stuff do you think is kind of a next generation car or truck, and maybe a couple of the cars in your own personal collection?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, from day one, I've learned from Wayne, you know, buy what you like for enjoyment, not just based on investment or future values rising. We all like to think that sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I've always learned to, you know, buy what and go after what I like. And a lot of us car guys, I'm in my mid-30s, so a lot of guys in their 20s to 40s, we all kind of like the same stuff, you know, trendy stuff, M3s, M5s, Porsches. I just picked up, you know, a Lancia Delta Integrale 16-valve car I've always coveted and wanted. So it's really those poster cars, and as you know, work hard and save your money, you know, you try and grab them, you know, while you still can, unless you have unlimited funds to just buy whatever you want whenever. There's a lot of guys out there, you know, picking up these cars before they're, you know, going through the roof. And that's what I try and do on my personal end, you know, buy stuff I like, that I think other people might like, but really it's the driving experience for me. For example, I just picked up a E39 M5, so 02 M5. I mean, that 5-liter, V8 6-shift, nothing like it. And then on top of it, I have small children. So that's another key for me, is if my kids can enjoy that passion and the fun, whether it's after a school night or, on a weekend, I can take them out and have fun. So everyone has different needs, and so I try and cater to our needs as a family, and that's kind of how I purchase cars for myself.
Sure. Now talk about that E39 a little bit. One of our past guests and a good friend of mine, Eric Keller of Enthusiast Auto Group, he specializes in the M cars. He just had an article recently in Hagerty that talked about, I forgot the title of it, but basically it was, this thing just sold for $200,000. And it's like, what is going on with those cars right now? So what do you see? I know the value of those cars. I know why they're going up in value, and I would love to have one myself. But why are they so hot in the marketplace right now?
Well, I think that car that Eric sold, that they sold, that was a truly special car. So a lot of people get confused with, just a nice driver with, I think that car was out of the wrapper with very low mileage.
Yeah, I think 6,000 or something. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I don't try and break world records, and I love when those guys get those numbers. More power to them. But sometimes it is tough too. Where if you were on a budget, it does sting a little. Where now you think you have to pay $200,000 for M5. I think I purchased this one right. I was picky. I passed on a couple. I wanted a one owner. I wanted lower or average miles. So this one is 70,000 miles, and it was a one owner, always in the South, in South Carolina. So rust-free, super clean, always serviced. So I paid up, but I don't think, I paid retail, maybe high wholesale, so I can enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I do think the good cars will continue to rise. But there's always the exception to the rule, like that one they sold. Now it's just a truly spectacular vehicle.
I totally agree with you. I mean, to me, I think it's one of the prettiest generations of BMWs ever, especially the M5. Then you have, the power, the V8, the 6-speed, 4-door, all the options. Definitely a very special car and generation of BMW. So I don't see those going down anytime soon for sure. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I actually just helped my older brother find one too, because he goes out with clients from time to time, and he golfs, and everyone knows you can fit golf clubs in the back. So it's a really, versatile vehicle where you can take your wife to dinner, you can go out with your buddies, or you could take it on the track, or just simply have a ball driving it. So I think it checks off all those boxes, where if you only have funds or only a garage space for one vehicle, maybe that would be a good alternative.
So what are some of the other cars, maybe in your personal collection, or ones you think are next gen that end up in your collection because you kind of see it the same way you see that E39? What are a couple other cars you would like to mention?
I mean, I've always been a Porsche guy. I've always loved air-cooled cars. I have a 93 964 coupe that I just absolutely love. Be very difficult to part with. Once again, those are going up kind of, price-wise. But I think a lot of these 80s and 90s cars in general, whether it's a Fox body Mustang, I think it's like people are trying to relive or get that toy they once had, when they were younger in high school or college. So at this stage, it seems to be the age demographic seems to be gearing towards these 80s and 90s cars. Just to mention a few, pickup trucks are really hot and really popular. A lot of people love trucks. They're great. Whether it's a Chevy C10 or a Ford, F1 or F100. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so many different vehicles to talk about, right?
Now, I guess on that note, obviously you're a Porsche guy, and I just experienced my first Porsche. I got a little 996 that I absolutely love, and I find myself gravitating towards those now, and not just those, but any of the 4 or 6-cylinder, single-head, overhead cam, boxer engine cars that are just European, I guess is the best way to put it. Stuff I've never experienced, because I've always experienced the, Shelby or the Mustangs, and different things like that. It's just such a different driving experience, I guess is the best way to put it. I hate to put you on a spot here, but are there any like Porsches you would stay away from? Mostly, because of not necessarily value, but repair responsibility or something to that effect that you should, would warn folks to really do your homework on before you buy one of them?
Well, I mean, everyone mentions the IMS bearing on these 996s. I really don't see it to be a problem, and there's an easy fix. I think they're truly amazing vehicles, and each to their own. There's some people that have a little Mazda Miata, and they absolutely love it, and they drive the wheels off of it, and good for them. God bless. Like, that's not me. I don't want it, but if they enjoy it and that's what their budget allows, Boxsters, I think, are probably the best value right now. If you just want a little bop around weekend convertible, once again, me personally, I'm not a big convertible fan. Almost everything I have is coupes or sedans. Like, once again, for my kids or my 911, my, Lancia Integrale 16 valve, that's obviously a 4-door sedan. So, but no, I think you hit the nail on the head with your 996. I think value-wise, I think they're still undervalued. You want to go a little newer, 997s are great cars. I think they're great values. One other thing I learned from Wayne, whatever you're looking at, whatever your budget is, buy the best possible car you can. Don't buy the 6-owner with the bad Carfax, with the paintwork. If it means saving up a little more or splurging a little more, buy, it doesn't have to be a cream puff. It doesn't have to be a one owner. I think what I took from it, just learning from Wayne is just, whatever you can afford, just try and buy the nicest example you can find at that time. And that's what I try and do. I get more enjoyment out of it. I have less headaches and problems. And then the exit strategy when you go to sell it is so much simpler and easier, right?
Yeah.
When you're selling a proper car.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And also budget, for what you might have to have done. So like my little 996, typically they would fail if it under 30,000 miles. So I bought a car with over 30,000 miles on it. But yet, even when I went to get the oil change and they split open the oil filter, there were, metal particles. And so I had to get the IMS bearing replaced.
Okay.
Which at the same time, you might as well get the clutch because the transmission's out. And so, I got the car sorted and it's great. Next time I buy a 996, I don't care what the mileage is. I'm just going to factor that IMS bearing into my cost.
Yep.
If it hasn't already been done,
fine. Yeah.
So like you said, it's such an easy thing to get done. Well, not super easy, but, factor in those things when you're looking at those cars. Now, you mentioned the Lancia. Why is that car in your collection, and what does that say about the next generation of collectors?
It's such a fun car to drive, all-wheel drive with the turbo. Once again, not to, be a broken record and reiterate myself, but the back seat for the kid. But it's such, I think there's a huge following for rally cars and just that whole experience. So they're just a ball to drive, and they're not, unless you're getting some, spectacular, amazing Evo, they're not outrageous value-wise. This one I picked up was imported through Japan, and I found it through a friend of a friend. It was in Tennessee, imported, and he enjoyed it for 2 years, and he just dumped tons of money into it, new timing belt and everything. So it was a well-sorted example, and it was just a car I've always liked the look. I don't know why. I've always liked Volkswagen GTIs, Audi Quattros. The boxy cars kind of speak to me in the 80s. Not all of them. I appreciate a lot of cars and respect a lot of cars, but doesn't mean I necessarily want to own them.
Right.
This was one of them. I just kind of, I had that itch. I wanted to scratch it. So we'll see how long it lasts. I'll enjoy it this summer and then see what happens.
Yeah. Now, what else is in your personal collection that might be considered a next-gen kind of collectible car, or car on the rise, I guess might be the better way to put it?
Yeah. Well, I'm just a small guy with a small garage. So I have the M5. and the Delta, the 911. I try and do a decent amount of the air-cooled or 911, so I have an 88 911 as well. That'll be going to the market soon. It's just very similar to my 93. But I have a really cool Woody wagon, a 41 Woody from Wayne. Actually, I got it from Wayne out of his collection. And it speaks to me because it's lowered. It has a 302 V8 with the automatic, but yet it has heat and AC and a sound system, so I can really enjoy it with the kids. Take them, grab an ice cream cone, drive it to a cruise night, local here in Connecticut. So we have a lot of fun in that. The whole family fits in it and then some. Yeah, there's just so many cool cars I'd love to own. Don't yet.
Right. Now, what's one of the cars? Is there something? Well, before I move on, I will have to say that from a market trend perspective, Woodies are not next generation cars. So that's really cool that you have such a diverse experience by having one of those in your collection.
That was the one really cool thing working with Wayne throughout all these years, just learning brass cars and learning early cars and then all the way up to brand new stuff. So it's been a great experience, and I've had an appreciation for all cars. That being said, what I see is really popular, which I sell a lot of over at F40, is that Chevelle or that 30s Ford, but a resto mod with that AC and the modern drivetrain. So a lot of people like the old look, but we're spoiled with new cars today. They do everything, and they do everything so well. There's something to be said for that for the next generation, because muscle cars were really soft for a while, right? But I see them, look at all the auctions, and everything that's out there. A lot of people go back towards those cars because they have the cool old look, but yet they do everything so well.
Yeah, you actually brought up a couple points there. First off, the resto mod movement. That's huge, mostly because, like you said, people want to have all the comfort and convenience of a new car, but they want to have the coolness and the memories or whatever, of having an older car. And so we're seeing a huge trend of resto mods really taking off. And now these are expensive resto mods, they're $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. So it's not necessarily your next generation kid that's buying it,
No, yeah.
So because of the cost to do so. What would you say, like you just mentioned stuff that sells at F40, what are some of the things that you see selling at F40 that are either surprising or just trends in general? Obviously, you mentioned like the Chevelle, the muscle car. I've always said that's a generation I think will continue. I don't think that one will decline like the cars of the 40s and 50s, because you have the usability, you have the iconicness of the Mustang that's still being built today. People drive one of the new ones and they want to know more about the old ones, Yeah, so what are some of the things you just see from a pure sales standpoint or requests from your customers at F40 that our listeners might find surprising?
Well, exactly what you were saying, resto mod, a lot of European cars. We do a lot more European, Ferraris, Porsches, Jaguars, everything that most people like, XKEs, everything from, 550 Maranello, 575 Maranello. A lot of people all like the same stuff where, you look at a 575, Maranello, early 2000s. Well, it's almost 20 years old. It's almost a classic, but yet you can still do 120 miles an hour, and you have cold air and hot heat, and you can take it on that weekend trip. So, there's no surprise here that Ford Model A's and all these older cars are difficult sales, not very popular right now. T-Birds from the 50s are just, sometimes I cringe when I hear them. There's so many of them out there, and they're just such a hard sale in today's market. I must get a phone call a week with someone with, some type of T-Bird or Bel Air. They're cars, and it's not bad. It's just everyone wants to sell them, and no one's looking to buy them, especially when I hear, oh, Dad's too old, Dad can't drive it, or Dad doesn't want it, or Dad passed away. And I'm looking at the guy, and he's 50, and then he doesn't want it, and Dad can't want, and the grandkids don't want it or can't afford it. So who's going to want some of these cars down the road? So, me and Wayne, we look at that a lot. We try and see what does sell, what people do like and want, because it's not always about the sale. It's about, keeping your clients and everyone happy in terms of, what they're looking for and meeting their needs in terms of their car collection. So
yeah, it's really interesting you said that, because I've said it many times. Basically, it's really the baby boomer generation that is selling their collections, and when you think about that, and this isn't just baby boomers, it's anytime there's a generational shift and you have a large population that's getting out of one thing and going into another, that's where you have the disparities in, supply and demand. You have too much of these cars all of a sudden that were in such demand in the past, So I'd love a 55, 56, 57 Chevy much as anybody else. I would love to have one personally, but there's a lot of other cars I would have before that, and that goes to my generation, yep. Right? And, unfortunately, all these cars are kind of coming onto the market at the same point. So not only is there excess supply, but there's a decline in demand from the generational shift, which obviously then equates to depressed prices, at least in the short term. And, we'll see where it goes beyond that.
I agree.
It's interesting to see, and that's kind of happening with the Woody wagons as well. Basically anything in the 30s and 40s and early 60s, I would even say. Once you get into the muscle car era, that's where I think we start seeing a little bit more stability. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So true. And I knew that when I was getting the Woody. I knew they weren't popular and they went way down. It's just a fun, cool vehicle. And sometimes you just, you have that want or that itch and scratch it. And then, you can't always act on strictly investment. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting to see what the future brings and, holds in future generations here of the car culture and community. I guess time will tell on some of these things.
Yeah. And what's really cool, though, is that if you're part of that next generation, look at the cars in the 50s and early 60s and the 40s, because you can get a good deal on something cool, and I'm actually looking at a 55. I think it's just a Packard Clippard, 4-door car, but no rust, V8, column shift, and I can get it for like $4,000.
Wow.
And, yeah, you can just drive it around for a little while. It's a beautiful blue and white, and it's kind of like that's a great summer car just to tool around and go to the cruise-ins, enjoy it for a little while, and sell it. You're not going to lose money on a $4,000 car, and if you are,
absolutely,
it's $10, So
yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny you mention that, though, because there's a lot of people that don't have a big budget and they get discouraged, Yeah, we would all love the McLaren F1 or the BMW 507, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of people can't afford them. So like you said, that Packard, that's a really cool car. You can drive to a Cars and Coffee or a Cruise Night car show, and you're probably going to be the only one there too. And you get that excitement and that feel, and you have fun, whether it's with the family or by yourself or whoever. But and you don't break the bank. So that's really cool. I hope you get that car, Greg.
Yeah, I'll let you know for sure. You'll see it on Instagram. I know that's for sure. I really appreciate your time today. Now, I've been trying to get you on this show here for like 2 years now, so I do really appreciate it. And
thank you.
I do want to know, what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about you and F40 Motorsports?
Yeah, so our website's f40.com, and my direct email is mike@f40, and follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Don't hesitate. If you're ever in the area in Connecticut, stop by, say hi. If Wayne's there, he always goes out of his way to say hi. Otherwise, it's usually me and Sue in the office, and we're more than happy to give you a tour and show you around.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I like to do at the end of this, and I apologize to my listeners because I ran out of time with Wayne, so I'm hoping you'll do a double for us. You'll do it you'll do it as yourself, and then you'll do it as Wayne. I figure
Okay,
you're the
I'll
second
do my
best.
best.
Yeah, and it's something I call keep, cash, and crush. So I'll give you three cars, and you have to pick one to keep forever, one to cash in, and then unfortunately one to send to the crusher. So I'm really disappointed in myself that I forgot to do it. I actually just ran out of time last week with Wayne. Really disappointed in myself that I wasn't able to get him or to hear him squirm a little bit. So I'll have to do that on a future interview. So how about we'll warm up a little bit with Wayne's cars that I picked for him.
Okay.
Now do your best to pick based on what you think he would pick and not necessarily what you would pick. Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
All right. So the three cars I gave Wayne, one was I tried to pick different generations of cars because he's so diverse in what he likes.
Yeah.
So I picked a 1953 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, a classic. Let's see. I picked a 1965 Mustang GT Fastback with the K-Code Hypo. And the third car I picked was a 1983 Lamborghini Countach. So we got a muscle car, we got a classic 50s cruiser, and we have an Italian exotic. So,
oh man, that's hard.
A 53 Cadillac Eldorado convertible, 65 Mustang Hypo Fastback, and an 83 Lambo. Which one do you think Wayne would keep forever? Which one do you think he will cash in, and which one do you think he would crush?
Difficult. This is good options, though. I think he would cash in on the Countach. The market's come back on those. It was really strong and a little soft. I think it's come back enough. They're kind of pricey to maintain, and Wayne's not. He loves Lamborghinis, but he's not a huge Lamborghini guy in terms of his personal collection.
Okay.
I think he would keep the K-Code. One of his more favorite cars in his collection. He's fortunate to have a Shelby GT350, Tasca Ford edition. One of my favorite cars, just absolutely awesome car. Wimbledon white, blue stripe, 4-speed, just a ball. And sadly, I don't know if this is fair assessment because it's, but I think out of the three, he might say crush the Cadillac. I don't know, but he is a Cadillac guy, and he does love Cadillacs. So I'm kind of cornered here. I don't know if he'd crush any of them because the 53 Cadillacs, they are absolutely gorgeous and stunning. But, I think it's a toss-up between that and the Countach, between what he would, he would cash out on. But he'd probably... I'm thinking he'd, crush the Cadillac out of all three of them. Sorry, Wayne, if you're listening. Hopefully this is what he'd think or say. So.
Yeah, next time you have lunch with him, be sure to tell him the choices and see if you got it right, and let us know if you got it wrong. How about that?
Yeah, I'll have to ask him tomorrow.
All right, so now it's time for yours. So I've got three cars for you. And hopefully this is difficult. I tried to add a little bit of an X factor to each. So the first one's a 1986 911, not a turbo, but a turbo-bodied car. Okay? So you got the turbo look, but you don't have the actual turbo. Next one's a 1993 Supra, twin turbo, but with 40,000 miles. And the last one is a 1997 Land Rover North America Defender 90 convertible, let's say with like 65,000 miles. So those are your three cars.
This is very, very easy for me because I've personally owned a Defender. I've had the pleasure of owning a couple of twin turbo Supras, and I'm a 911 guy. I would say I'd keep the M491 option wide body. Air-cooled cars are strong. I think they're going to keep going. Wide-body cars, that much more unique. I like them. The Supras, awesome cars and cool. The prices are just getting silly. I can't foresee some of these cars keep going up and up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it would be an appropriate time to cash out, take the money to the bank, buy another car or two. And unfortunately, I had a bad experience, not a terrible experience with the Defender, but they're just old trucks, and as much as I love them, they're always leaking oil. They're always breaking down. And maybe I just had a bad experience with mine, but I just kept throwing money at it. And unless you have unlimited funds and you have to have one in your collection, it was more of a headache for me than enjoyment. So I would crush that one out of the three.
That's so funny because I think I saw on your feed once that Supra and maybe even the Land Rover, and actually saw a Land Rover Defender today, which maybe put it on the list. And what was interesting is it was getting an entire new frame at the cost of $25,000 just for the frame, much less putting the rest of the truck on it.
Yeah, I was upside down in mine, and I talked with Wayne. And he goes, "Dump it. You're just gonna keep." And I took a haircut, and it stung. And it's not fun being in this profession. You're supposed to be an expert and only make money. Bottom line is, I think every now and then we all lose money here and there. So that one I lost a decent amount on. That being said, the gentleman that got it went through it even further than I did, and he absolutely loves it. And it's in his collection with lots of air-cooled Porsches, BMWs, and he has, I think he has a much bigger wallet than I do, and so it's in the right home.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and now just real quick, because I know you need to go, but why did you, what speaks to you about the non-turbo, turbo-look 911?
They're, you know what? Everyone's turbo, and they're great cars, but there's more things to go wrong. And let's face it, you're not buying an 80s car for a powerhouse. You can go buy a new turbo ass and blow the doors off of it. So I feel like the look of it is really cool. I think the rarity's there, but you don't, in my eyes, that motor, is such an amazing motor. Not knocking a turbo. If it had a turbo, it'd be great, but just a proper wide body, a nice, clean, low mileage. I'd prefer a coupe, obviously, over a cab or a Targa. Whether or not they're rare or not, I don't think they, I think a coupe is more run of the mill, but I just like the look of it a little better personally.
Right. Yeah, and I bring that up because as I was digging into the data, I saw a huge increase on those cars via insurance data. They were up like 33% or something, while the actual turbo 930s were down about 10%. And I thought, you know what? People are cluing into this just basically for what you just said there. So it's cool to get your perspective on something that I'm seeing elsewhere within the marketplace.
All right, great.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know we've already told our listeners how best to find you, so I really appreciate your time today, and I will be sure to drop by next time I'm on the road up in your neck of the woods.
Please do, and thank you so much. It's a true honor, and thank you for your time and having me. It was great.
Thanks for listening to the Collector Car Podcast. Don't forget to give us a nice rating on iTunes, and be sure to follow us on Instagram and everywhere else at the Collector Car Podcast.